All right, let's talk about something a little weird. It's this feeling we all know, but we hardly ever put a name to it. I'm talking about the strange, sometimes deeply unsettling reality of just having a body. I mean, seriously, have you ever just stopped and really thought about your skin? We like to think of it as this neat, clean border, right? A simple line that says, this is me, and that's the rest of the world. But what if that border isn't nearly as solid as we like to imagine?
So yeah, let's get into that boundary. We think of it as a solid wall, but the truth is, it's so much more complex and, well, leaky than we usually want to admit.
Look, we love the idea of being this contained, clean, tidy little unit, but the reality is just messier. That border is always being crossed. Stuff going in, stuff coming out. It's a porous, shifting boundary that really doesn't care about our rules.
And this leads to a really fascinating way to reframe things. Instead of your body just being a passive container, one source describes it as a womb of reality. Think about that. It's a place that actively creates and participates in the world, not just sits inside of it. And that participation means dealing with the messy stuff. We bleed, we sweat, we defecate, and ultimately, our bodies decay. But here's the thing. These aren't failures or bugs in the system. They're fundamental, totally unavoidable processes that are constantly reminding us of what we are. So that deep, gut-level ick factor we all feel when we're confronted with these realities, well, it actually has a name and a pretty fascinating philosophical backstory. To really get this, just picture someone you know who is all about control. Their home is spotless, their schedule is perfect, their whole self-image is built on this idea of pristine order. They feel completely in command of their world. But then their body does something inconveniently biological. Maybe they get a nasty stomach bug, or just find a clump of their own hair in the sink. And all of a sudden, that perfect, clean world is threatened by what the source calls the unsettling vices of just being alive. That perfect self-image, it starts to crack. And that feeling, right there, is a perfect illustration of a concept called abjection. It was coined by the philosopher Julia Kristeva, and it's not just about being grossed out. No, it's that specific horror we feel when we're forced to face the messy, biological parts of ourselves we try so hard to ignore. It's that moment the body taps the mind on the shoulder and says, hey, you're not fully in charge here. So how does this feeling build into what the source calls the terror of being real? Why is this whole experience of abjection so deeply unsettling? Well, it's because it exposes this fundamental conflict we all live with. We want to be the clean self, an identity we build out of order, control, and purity. But the abject, the reality of decay, leaks, and our raw physical bodies, is always, always there, challenging that tidy little story. So here's the crucial point. The terror isn't really coming from the cut or the stray hair itself. It comes from what that thing represents. It's a reminder that our whole sense of a stable, controlled self is incredibly fragile. The walls we build around our identity are way thinner than we'd like to think.
So naturally, we've developed some very modern, very effective ways to avoid feeling this terror. In a word, we distract ourselves.
As the source material puts it so well, we paint over the terror. We just keep filling our lives with activities, entertainment, and all kinds of distractions precisely so we don't have to sit with the uncomfortable truth of our own bodies.
I mean, does this cycle look familiar to you? You have a moment that reminds you you're a biological creature. You feel that little flash of abject terror, and what's the next move? You grab your phone. You start scrolling the feed. It's become the modern reflex for running away from physical reality. But what if running away is the exact wrong approach? What if the real path to understanding ourselves lies in actually turning around and facing it? You see, the great irony here is that the more energy we spend rejecting these gross parts of our existence, the more fragmented and disconnected we feel from our whole selves. We're creating this internal division that can never, ever be resolved. And this brings us to probably the most powerful insight of all. We are also what we reject. Denying your physical self doesn't make it go away. It just makes it this unacknowledged shadow part of who you are. And that's where the real solution is. True self-understanding isn't about achieving some state of perfect control or purity. It's about learning to live with the ambiguity, accepting that you are both a high-level thinking being and a biological machine that sweats and decays. So the ultimate takeaway is this.
You aren't just a mind trapped inside a body. You are the whole thing. The consciousness, the creativity, the sweat, the scars, the sickness, and the strength. You're the whole, complex, messy package.
Which leaves us with one last question to chew on. Once you stop fighting it, is this reality really so terrifying? Or could there be a strange kind of liberation in finally accepting the whole, messy truth of what it means to be human? It's something to think about.